Welcome to the Economist in Your Ear podcast. Here's something to think about. When a major economic power uses three fundamentally different regulatory levers, antitrust, export controls, and shipping fees, all at the exact same moment, are we just watching routine compliance? Or is it something more deliberate? Maybe the creation of what some are calling permanent adjustable friction aimed squarely at foreign firms.
That phrase, permanent adjustable friction. Yeah, that's precisely what we need to unpack today. Our focus is really on this recent, highly coordinated regulatory tightening coming out of Beijing. It's not just about one specific headline, like the Qualcomm investigation everyone's talking about. It's about understanding how they're using this whole strategic toolkit simultaneously across different ministries, and crucially, what that signals about a fundamental shift in managing foreign trade and tech access.
Right, that's our mission here. We want to go beyond just reporting what happened and explore the implications. Why this integrated toolkit feels different and what it really means for, any multinational operating in sensitive sectors. Think semiconductors, autonomous vehicles. They really have to reset their risk models now. Okay, so let's start with the evidence for this coordination, because that's what really stands out, doesn't it? There wasn't just a gradual tightening. Our sources are pretty clear that within the same week, specifically around October 10th, 2025, three major actions landed, almost like clockwork.
The coordination is hard to miss, really unmistakable. First action, you had SAMR, that's the State Administration for Market Regulation, their antitrust body. They announced a probe into Qualcomm's acquisition of Autotalks. Now, that deal actually went through back in June 2025.
Okay, and at the very same time.
Yeah, simultaneously, the Ministry of Transport steps in. They roll out these new reciprocal docking fees.
Reciprocal fees designed to hit U.S.-linked ships and carriers, basically, without, I suppose, directly naming the U.S. raises the baseline cost.
Exactly. And then completing this sort of synchronized stack, you have MOFCOM, the Ministry of Commerce. They tightened controls on rare earth exports. But crucially, it wasn't just the raw elements. They brought in a new, highly detailed licensing regime and, importantly, expanded the scope to include critical items in the lithium-ion battery supply chain.
So you've got antitrust, shipping logistics, and export licensing. Three different levers, three different ministries deployed all at once.
All at once.
Now, what's important for you, the listener, to realize is the process behind this. Washington's trade measures, they often seem quite abrupt, maybe reacting quickly to events. But the Chinese process, from what we understand, tends to involve a lot of extensive, quiet coordination, invisible stuff happening across ministries before anything becomes public.
That's right. So when you see this stack of policies moving together like this, it's almost certainly the result of strategic intent coming from the top. It's not just bureaucratic coincidence.
Yeah.
Definitely not.
Okay, right. Let's zoom in then on the perhaps highest profile action, that SAMR probe into Qualcomm. Now, on the surface, it looks procedural, maybe. SAMR cited Qualcomm's failure to properly notify the acquisition of Autotalks. It was an $80 million deal, which, technically is below a lot of standard global reporting thresholds. Qualcomm did acknowledge the oversight, apparently, but it seems SAMR had already sort of signaled interest, asking for disclosure earlier. So is this just SAMR enforcing the rules, or is there a bigger game here?
We absolutely have to challenge that idea of it being just routine enforcement. You really have to look at SAMR's history. They operate with these dual lenses. Yes, they enforce competition law, pure and simple, but they have a long track record of mixing that with broader concerns. System risk, industrial security. I mean, think back to that huge 2021 antitrust fine against Alibaba. That went way beyond just market dominance. It touched on control over data infrastructure. Or look at the conditional oversight they put on NVIDIA's acquisition of Mellanox. They wanted to make sure that crucial technology access remained, available within China.
So they're using competition law not just to count market share points, but to actually check technological leverage, access to critical industrial bottlenecks.
Precisely. And that leads us right to the strategic heart of this Qualcomm case. Autotalks. What they do is specialize in V2X. That's vehicle everything technologies. This is the bedrock for future autonomous driving, smart city infrastructure.
It allows cars to talk to traffic lights, other cars, that kind of thing.
Exactly. Everything in the environment.
Yeah.
And that makes it a critical technology.
And that's fundamentally dual use, isn't it? Critical for safety, but also for, state control.
It's the ultimate strategic intersection, really. V2X is vital for road safety systems, absolutely. But it's also foundational to this entire industrial security apparatus that Beijing is building around its EV and autonomous vehicle ambitions, dominance goals. So by scrutinizing this deal, even a relatively small one, the state is asserting its right to control who owns the foundational tech that underpins national infrastructure. It's a way to ensure resilience, regardless of who actually holds the IP.
And, we have seen this playbook before, haven't we? Where the regulatory gears seem to mesh with the diplomatic posture. I'm thinking of earlier probes, like how the Qualcomm NXP deal was allowed to just drag on forever, or those previous inquiries into Google's market dominance. Those processes seem to slow down or speed up entirely depending on the diplomatic weather, so to speak.
Yeah, good way to put it.
So the timing now revisiting the NVIDIA Mellanox oversight conditions and going after the small Qualcomm Autotalks deal pretty aggressively, it signals the regulatory climate has definitely hardened, right?
Absolutely. And that climate shift, it's driven by a much longer-term goal, something that goes beyond just short-term trade spats. It's about technological resilience. This kind of scrutiny feeds directly into China's consistent policy drive to reduce its reliance on foreign systems. We saw the same logic when SAMR looked into Google's dominance with Android. They understand that controlling the legal mechanisms like merger reviews is a really powerful tool. It lets them shape industrial outcomes, maybe force technology transfer, or at least secure commitments.
Okay, so if the antitrust pro is that strategic stick, maybe forcing behavioral commitments, let's shift to the export controls, the license switch, as you called it. Why are these new MOFCOM rare earth rules considered a bigger headache for supply chain managers than, say, the blunter export bans we've seen in the past?
Right. Well, those previous blunt bans, they were like disruptive storms. You sort of hunkered down, waited them out, and then you compensated afterwards.
Yeah.
These new rules, though, they create a standing license switch. It's something Chinese officials can basically dial up or down depending on the geopolitical temperature. It injects permanent, adjustable friction right into the global supply chain.
So it's designed to be flexible and frustrating.
Exactly. The crucial difference is the process. This new, very granular licensing regime means that instead of just a temporary stop, every single shipment, every component potentially needs specific approval. And that approval process, it can be drawn out indefinitely, potentially. We heard firms were already reporting tougher approvals for Magna exports, much longer turnarounds, starting back in September. That was before the formal expansion to battery materials was even fully published.
Wow, so the mechanism itself is the weapon.
That's the idea. Weaponize bureaucracy.
And that flexibility makes compliance, well, a nightmare, I imagine. Our sources highlighted two immediate, kind of terrifying challenges for multinationals. First one is notification hygiene. We should probably unpack that for the listener.
Yeah, notification hygiene. It's basically the new term for regulatory paranoia. It means the old thresholds for when you need to file. They're sort of out the window. If your product or a deal you're doing touches any sensitive vertical, think AI compute, advanced networking, V2X like we discussed, you now have to expect proactive outreach from regulators, pre-filing outreach, even for the smallest deals.
Even tiny deals.
Yeah. I mean, one compliance officer joked to us, they're now budgeting to file a disclosure if they buy a specialized paperclip maker, just in case the metal involves some restricted component down the line.
Good grief.
The fear of being deemed too small, but still strategically important, is driving this massive over-filing behavior, just to be safe.
Which I guess leads straight into the second challenge, which sounds even harder, provenance mapping. What exactly are foreign companies being asked to prove now?
They're essentially being asked to do industrial forensic accounting. It's intense. The rare earth and battery rules, they have these distinct long-arm features. Compliance now means tracing not just the content, but the process. Companies have to track if any restricted Chinese technology or equipment touched that part anywhere during its production life cycle.
Any.
Wow. Any. It shifts the burden entirely onto the foreign company. They need to provide really stringent supplier attestations, build complex license contingency clauses into all their contracts. You're basically presumed guilty until you can prove yourself compliant, down to the nth degree.
Okay, we spent a lot of time on the high-tech strategic side, the antitrust, the export controls. But let's not forget the third prong of this strategy, the trade and logistics friction. Those new reciprocal docking fees from the transport ministry, often overlooked maybe.
They are often overlooked, but they're important. These fees are almost the pure economic expression of the political tension. They're tit for tat, right? They don't target a specific product or company, but they just raise the operating costs for any carrier linked to U.S.-China traffic. It's a mechanism that directly mirrors political friction with economic friction. Simple as that.
And the immediate impact. especially thinking about the timing. We're heading right into the crucial Q4 holiday shipment season.
Exactly. Perfect timing if you want to cause disruption. These fees are already causing knock-on pricing effects. We're hearing about genuine wobbles in maritime costs, timelines. And when you raise the cost and complexity of that foundational layer shipping, it affects everything from, cheap industrial components all the way up to high-end electronics.
So it really confirms the friction is comprehensive. Strategic at the top end with V2X and punitive right down at the basic trade level with shipping.
It covers the whole spectrum. So if we connect all three prongs, the antitrust leverage, the export control switch, and the shipping fees, if we link that to the bigger picture, the conclusion seems pretty clear. The new baseline for companies operating in or relying on China in sensitive areas is this permanent adjustable friction. It's not just a temporary storm they can, wait out.
Right.
Which then raises a really important question for anyone trying to forecast their risk. What are the specific, concrete signals we should watch for? What will confirm this new reality over the next few months?
Okay, good question. You really need to be watching 3 specific areas of leverage, according to our sources. These will tell you if this coordinated toolkit is truly here to stay. Signal number 1. Keep a close eye on SAMR's remedy posture in that Qualcomm case. Will the punishment just be a clean procedural fine, a slap on the wrist for not filing? Or will it demand deep behavioral commitments? Things like mandated access to V2X standards for Chinese firms, specific licensing terms, maybe even commitments on pricing.
Right. If they demand those behavioral remedies, that confirms the strategic intent, not just procedural ticking boxes.
Exactly. Signal number 2. Pay critical attention to the early license patterns coming out of MOFCOM under these new rules. We need to watch how their guidance is actually applied on the ground. For instance, will defense-adjacent end uses be, presumptively denied, essentially a hard block? Or will critical industrial application stuff for EVs, advanced manufacturing, will those remain on a more flexible case-by-case basis? The actual denial rate, the processing times, that sets the real pain level for global manufacturers.
Yeah, the devil's in the details of the implementation.
And finally, signal number 3. Look for spillover cases. That ongoing retroactive checkup on NVIDIA's Mellanox deal. That's the precedent here. If we start seeing more of these condition compliance reviews where regulators go back and retroactively scrutinize legacy U.S. deals that affect Chinese supply chains, that will definitively signal that this coordinated scrutiny is broader and, here to stay. They're basically cleaning up the past to control the future.
That's a good summary. The key takeaway for executives, for anyone managing these risks, is that sensitive verticals, V2X, automotive, AI, compute, you name it, they will now permanently live under these dual simultaneous lenses, competition and security. And that framework, that dual lens, is what guides all 3 prongs of this new comprehensive regulatory toolkit we've been discussing.
So as companies try to adjust to this new reality, this coordinated regulatory friction, it leaves us with a final thought, doesn't it? What will be the true long-term cost of this heightened geopolitical risk? Not just thinking about profit margins for the next quarter, but the actual speed of global technological development, especially in areas that could benefit everyone, like V2X safety systems or advanced AI research. What's the cost there?
Thanks for listening. Follow us for daily insights into world affairs, and don't forget to like, comment, and share.